Welcome to the second episode of Cities and Nights Strategies and Tips. I wanted to make a video about initial placement, but before I do that, it makes sense to talk about the relative importance of each resource and commodity, and how they differs from the base game. So in this episode, let me share with you my ranking for the 5 resources and 3 commodities in CNK. Alright, let's begin with the resource ranking. For each type of resource, I'm going to talk about how much you need them and how many of them you need. What I mean by this will become clear once we start the discussion. I put wood at the bottom of the list. Wood is used the same way in CNK as in the base game. That is to build roads and to build settlements. So are roads and settlements important? Remember, we're speaking in relative terms here. My take is not really. Sure, roads can potentially get you 2 extra points from the longest road, but there are more ways to get extra points in CNK than in the base game. In the base game, there are the largest army, the longest road, and victory points from development cards. In CNK, you have the longest road, 3 metropolises, merchant, victory point from progress cards, and victory points awarded from defending the barbarians. My point is, the importance of the longest road is diluted in CNK. Also in CNK, because knights can intercept your roads, who gets the longest road is often not determined by who builds most roads, but by who's most capable of preventing your opponents from intercepting your roads. Sometimes, you could win the game by having 2 metropolises and 1 city, and you only need 2 wood for the build. To sum up, wood is not that important, and you don't need a lot of it, so I put it at the bottom of the ranking. What about bricks? In the base game, wood and bricks are always used together. However, in CNK, you could build a city wall with 2 bricks, and you can build a maximum of 3 city walls. Each city wall increases your card discarding threshold by 2. So instead of discarding when you have more than 7 cards, you discard when you have more than 9 cards if 7 is rolled. Are city walls important? Absolutely. More so when the game progresses, and more so in 4 or more players games. So I put bricks above wood. Let's move on to the sheep. There are no development cards in CNK. Instead, you get progress cards from city expansions, which requires commodities, not sheep. You do need sheep to build knights, and you certainly need at least 1 knight before the first barbarian attack. However, I advised against building more knights or upgrading knights during the early game. There are 3 reasons for this. First, it consumes another crucial resource, that is the ore, which will delay your second city. Secondly, you might be helping others defending their cities against barbarian attack. And thirdly, you may get awarded victory points from defending the barbarian, which I consider fluff. I define fluff as victory points that do not help with production. Fluffs can make you a target when you shouldn't be. So sheep is important, but you don't need a lot of it. Coming in second is the ore. The ore is needed to build cities and knights. Are cities and knights important? Well, you just need to look at the name of the expansion. However, it's not as important as the wheat. Presumably, you have your first knight already. Not having more ore will delay your second city, but not having wheat could mean losing your only city. Which leaves us the clear winner, the wheat. Wheat is needed to build cities and activate knights. I have dedicated a whole section to discussing the importance of wheat in my first strategy video. Check it out if you haven't. Okay, to me the ranking should really look like this, because the ore is far more important than the sheep in my opinion. While I'm pretty certain about the ranking of wheat, ore, and wood, the relative placement of brick and sheep is arguable. Now let's move on to commodities. To rank the commodities, I will consider the value of the corresponding progress cards and the special ability that you acquire when you reach level 3 of each city expansion. Let's start with the paper. The paper gives you science expansion, and most science cards are good cards. There's probably nothing else that gives you a greater boost of production during the early game than upgrading your initial settlement into a city. Irrigation, mining, and medicine are all great cards for it. Korean is also a good card for the early game because you want to get level 1 city improvement as early as possible, which was discussed in my first video. Inventor can be a game changer when you have your city next to a tile 3 or 11. Role building, alchemist, engineer, smith are all good cards throughout the game. The only card I dislike during the early game is printer, because I consider the victory point fluff. What about the special ability? Level 3 science expansion gives you the aqueduct, and shall we all agree that aqueduct is overpowered? So much so that it throws off the game balance in my opinion. So science cards are good, and aqueduct is great. Paper easily takes the top spot. The second place on the list belongs to the cloth. Cloth gives you the trait expansion, and most yellow cards are also good cards. There is a third of the chance to get a merchant when you get a yellow card, and the merchant can be very helpful in balancing out your resources. Plus, lots of close games are decided by who holds the merchant at the end. Resource monopoly is somewhat nerfed in CNK. Instead of monopolizing all cards of the type you choose, you could only steal 2 cards at the most from each player. But it's still powerful, and the chance of getting resource monopoly is 22%. Master Merchant could be devastating for point leaders. Imagine you are 1 paper away from getting Aqueduct, and your opponent uses Master Merchant on you and takes 2 paper from you. As for the special ability, Trading House is not as useful. It does give you a final thrust to cross the finish line, but it's rarely something I pursue aggressively. Coin is at the bottom of the ranking because the utility of many politics cards are highly situational. Take Intrigue as an example. It's most of the time useless, but it's also the only solution in situations where your opponents intercept your longest road with the Mighty Knight. Diplomat, Wedding, Bishop, Saboteur, and Warlord are like, how do I put it? I won't get excited getting them. Spy and Deserter are fantastic cards. I always get super nervous when one of my opponents gets a blue card before the first Barbarian attack. A surprise Deserter right before the Barbarian attack is every CNK gamer's nightmare. Unfortunately, there's less than 30% of chance of getting these 2 cards. The special ability with Politics expansion is Fortress. It lets you build Mighty Knights, and Mighty Knights could be the key to winning the longest road. Other than that, it really doesn't help you much. With that, my resource and commodity ranking is concluded. You may already notice that wood is at the bottom of the ranking, but paper is at the top. The ore is kind of the opposite. This has important implications when it comes to picking the initial settlement and city, which will be the topic on my next video. Do you agree with my ranking? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. I hope to see you in my next video.